Alright, so let's get this cracking. So right here we have an engraving of King James VI of Scotland, who ruled Scotland from 1567 to 1625, and he ruled Ireland and England from 1603 to 1625, thereby unifying the kingdoms of Ireland, Scotland, and England. And in this edition, it's going to be debunking Pan-African myths. And when I say Pan-African myths, I mean those brothers and sisters that want to associate our history exclusively to Africa, whilst completely omitting our history in Europe, our history in America, and our history in the ancient Near East. And me personally, I have no issue when our people try to delve into African history. My only issue arises is when they try to pigeonhole our history to Africa. So in a small clip, we're going to watch a Pan-African that's trying to debunk King James being a black man. So we're just gonna have to see what he has to say.
In 1595, when he was 29 years old, so this is when King James was 29 years old, his worry covered look was the product of a difficult and often depressing youth. So that picture is showing King James, right, in 1595. Excellent work. I'm an artist, and I'm telling you it's excellent work. If King James was black, they would have showed it right there, because you gotta draw the man like he looked, or that's your butt. They will kill you during them times if the painter's messed up. They got paid thousands of dollars yearly to paint the images of the royal court. Very interesting right there. Now we're moving on. And since King James is black, then he should at least have a black mother, because you know y'all give Barack Obama a pass, I don't mind. That's fine. But if you're black, you should at least have a black mother or a black father. Right or wrong? Okay, so let's see how King James' mother. There's King James' mother right there. King James' mother. Her name is Mary Stuart. See that? She looked white as a lily. Painted again, right? By those painters that got paid thousands of dollars to represent the image because they didn't have cameras then. All right? Look at his mother. She's not a black woman. She's a white woman, and she's a Stuart. Do you know what a Stuart is? A Stuart is the royal line. It's the dynasty, okay, that ran England. The Stuarts. Some say the Stuarts are black. Well, whatever. Those particular Stuarts wasn't black, and I don't care what you say the word means. Let's move on to his daddy, Henry Stuart, the father of King James. Let's get a mental picture. Let's see exactly what the father of King James was. Right, there you go. And he's looking a little sweet and soft there. There you have it. So we know where he got his tendencies from. Look at his daddy. He's not a real tough guy, and you know he wasn't trying to fight nobody. That's his father. That's his dad, Henry Stuart. You got to toughen up a little bit, Mr. Henry. Boy, so we see his mother and we see his father. How in the world do you get a black person out of that? What are these crazy Hebrews talking about? Tell them to show you pictures from that time. Show them paintings of that time.
Okay, so all this Pan-African showed us was a bunch of whitewash fake paintings of King James, his father, and his mother. He didn't go into any of the contemporary eyewitness accounts of King James or his family members. He didn't show us none of that. And for him to just show us these whitewash paintings and pretty much perpetuate that as proof, it's negligible at best, because I'm pretty sure that this brother's into ancient Kemet history or ancient Egyptian history. And if you're into that history, you should understand the concept of whitewashing. You should understand the concept of reproductions. You should understand these things, because these modern day scholars have attempted to whitewash Egyptian history. But I'm pretty sure this brother believes that the ancient Egyptians were black Africans, which they were. But if you ask any of these modern day scholars, they're going to tell you that no, they weren't. So yeah, man, we're just going to get into the eyewitness accounts. We're going to go into a few portraits too, and a few different depictions. And yeah, we're going to prove without a shadow of a doubt that King James was a black man. Okay, so now we're going to get some insight into how King James looked. And this excerpt is from a book published in 1659 by John Rushworth. It says, historical collections of private passages of state, weighty matters in law, remarkable proceedings in 5 parliaments, beginning the 16th year of King James, 1618, and ending the 5th year of King Charles, 1629, volume 1. So here it says, I dare presume to say, you never read in your lives. of two kings more fully paralleled amongst themselves, and better distinguished from all other kings beside themselves. King Solomon is the only son of his mother. Proverbs 4:3. So was King James. Solomon was of a complexion white and ruddy. So was King James. Solomon was an infant king, a little child. 1 Chronicles 22:5. So was King James, a king at the age of 13 months. So here's basically juxtaposing the life of King Solomon and King James, and just illustrating the similarities. And the main thing I wanted to focus on is when it says King Solomon was of a white complexion and ruddy, much like King James. So the main thing to take away from this is the ruddy aspect. Because when it says white, it's not going into them being pale of complexion or fair of complexion. That's not what it's talking about. Because you have to keep in mind that this is Old English. So it's more so talking about their complexion being radiant, or them having a glow to their complexion, or having a bright complexion. So just to give some proof into what white was in reference to within that context, here you got Songs of Solomon 5:10, where it says, "My beloved is white and ruddy, the chiefest among 10,000." So that's what this verse was what that excerpt was referencing. So let's see what white meant within this context. So here it says dazzling, i.e. sunny, bright, figuratively, you see. And it gives you more. It says dazzling, glowing, clear and bright. So that's what I was talking about. It's talking about King James having a radiant complexion, having a bright complexion. And here it says bright, white, sunny, serene, clear. Again, same thing. So it's nothing alluding to him being white or having a pale complexion or having a fair complexion. It's nothing of the sort. So now with ruddy. So here when you type in ruddy cow on Google, this is what pops up. A brown cow with a reddish tint. So you got this cow that's known as a red heifer. Because the ruddy and red ruddy just means red. Like those terms can be used interchangeably. Then with ruddy duck, it's the same thing. And you actually have a duck that's known as a ruddy duck. And look at the complexion. A brownish reddish tint. North American ruddy duck. And look, is a brown duck with a reddish undertone. So here you have an artist called Ruddy Roy, and he has the same complexion as the cow and the duck, a brown complexion with a slightly reddish undertone. You see? And with regard to King James's physical appearance, he would have looked something like a Malcolm X. And I'll tell you why. Because if we look at Malcolm X right here, Malcolm X has that brownish reddish tint to his complexion, and his hair's illustrating the same thing. And much like how we read about white being in reference to dazzling and glowing, we see the exact same thing with Malcolm X's complexion. His complexion is dazzling, it's glowing, it's radiant. And even in another excerpt that we're about to read, King James was described having light brown hair, much like how we see Malcolm X here with light brown hair. So if Malcolm X was living during the time of King James, he would have been described as the same thing with a white and ruddy complexion. So just to give some more on Malcolm X, it says he befriended John Elroy Sanford, a fellow dishwasher at Jimmy's Chicken Shack in Harlem, who aspired to be a professional comedian. Both men had reddish hair, so Sanford was called Chicago Red, after his hometown, and Malcolm was known as Detroit Red. Years later, Sanford became famous as a comedian and actor Red Fox. So you see, so if they were living during the 17th century, they would have been given the epithet of Ruddy. Same way in the 20th century, they were given the epithet of Red. And we know that Red and Ruddy is interchangeable. And here we got Red Fox, the same complexion as a Malcolm X, and the same type of hair. That's him right there. The light brown complexion and the reddish undertone. You see? So now it says, in the 1828 American Dictionary of the English Language, Ruddy, of a red color, of a lively flesh color, or the color of the human skin in high health. Thus we say, ruddy cheeks, ruddy lips, a ruddy face or skin, a ruddy youth, and in poetic language, ruddy fruit. But the word is chiefly applied to the human skin, and the second definition is of a bright yellow color as ruddy gold. So again, that can also be attributed to Red Fox and Malcolm X. The ruddy gold complexion, they had a goldish complexion as well. Much like this woman. She has a goldish complexion with red cheeks. Then here it says, American newspaper, published during the early 20th century. It says, the evidence revealed that Walter's spouse was seated in the lap of a giant Negro of ruddy complexion, was whispering sweet things in her ebon ear. So that was just to give you an illustration of a Negro being described having a ruddy complexion. So that's just to put everything to bed with regards to what Ruddy was actually in reference to. So now we're going to be getting into the second eyewitness account on King James. And the man who wrote the second eyewitness account was a man called Arthur Wilson. He was a dramatist and a historian, and he was a contemporary of King James. So this excerpt is from James I by his contemporaries, an account of his career and character as seen by some of his contemporaries, by Ashton Robert, published in 1969. So this book is a compilation of the various eyewitness accounts on the king's life. And it says, but to conclude with our king, whom this do concern, he was born a king, and from that height the less fitted to look into inferior things. Yet few escaped his knowledge, being, as it were, a magazine to retain them. His stature was of the middle size, rather tall than low, well set and somewhat plump, of a ruddy complexion, his hair of a light brown, in his full perfection, had at last a tincture of white. So again, this is the second eyewitness account that's talking about the king's ruddy complexion. And it added a little bit more information with regards to the color of his hair, being a light brown complexion. And that's why I likened his physical appearance to Malcolm X, because we just saw that Malcolm X had the ruddy complexion and the light brown hair. Now we got a description on one of his sons, and one of his sons was King Charles I, who succeeded King James on the throne and ended up ruling England, Ireland and Scotland from 1625 to 1649. And here it says, King Charles I was of a middle stature, his complexion brown, inclining to a paleness, his forehead not wide, his brows large, his eyes grey. They were quick and penetrating, and their vivacious glances were remarked on the opening of his trowel. For Charles, considering himself to be a skillful physiognomist, was a keen observer of persons. His nose was somewhat large and rather round at the tip. The visage on the whole was long, and the lips seemed to have been thick. You see? So his complexion was brown, and he had thick lips. That's clear as day, man. That's clear as day. And this is from the commentaries on the life and reign of King Charles I, King of England, Volume 3, by Isaac Disraeli, published in 1830. The Electress Sophia and the Hanoverian Succession, by Sir William Adolphus, published in 1909. So this excerpt is going to be touching on King James's daughter, who went by the name of Elizabeth of Bohemia. And here it says, but of her appearance in later life, we have a different account from the trustworthy hand of the Duchess of Orleans, who says that she remembered her grandmother as if she had been in her presence on the day of writing, and who notes her black hair, long face, and powerful nose. So this is her granddaughter giving a description of her. So it says, Elizabeth Charlotte adds that there was a great likeness between the queen and her eldest son, of whom, as of her second, she was in his early days fond of speaking to the king, his father, as her pretty black baby. Look at that. So she was going up to King James and saying, look at my little black baby, because pretty is a French word that means little. You see? And it says, Elizabeth Charlotte adds that there was a great likeness between the queen and her eldest son. Likeness in what? In physical appearance. And the eldest son was Frederick Henry. He was the Prince of the Palatinate, which was a region in Germany. So this is clear as day, man. So she was referring to him as a little black baby, which makes her black mother, which makes King James his black grandfather. Reading on it says, altogether that there can be no doubt that she was one of the dark ladies to whom Shakespeare and others have attributed so peculiar a fascination, and for whom Goethe had so marked a preference. Come on, man. All the evidence is there, man. All the evidence is there. This is a medallion of the king's daughter, Queen Elizabeth of Bohemia. And you can see the somewhat full lips and the broad nose. This is damn near looking like someone's grandma. Now here we've got the king himself, King James. We see the flat nose. And just by the countenance and the expression on the man's face, you can tell that this is a black man. Like with certain things, what's understood doesn't need to be explained. And this is one of those situations. You can just tell. Now let's see how one of his grandsons was described. One of his grandsons was King Charles II, King of England, Ireland and Scotland, who reigned from 1660 to 1685. And it says, with their son, it was precisely the reverse. Charles II, in the popular language of the day, a tall black man. We ain't got to read no further. This is straightforward, straight to the point. It's not up for interpretation. It literally says a tall black man. And some people like to play games and they try to assert that black within this context is in reference to him being pale of complexion or absent of color. And while in the Old English, black can mean pale or absent of color, within this context, it's not the case. And the reason why it's not the case is because in different accounts, King Charles II is described having a swarthy complexion, which means dark or black. And these will be the same people that tell you that swarthy is in reference to someone with a tanned complexion. So there seems to be a conflict of interest. You can't be pale and tan skin at the same time. You can't be. So that's not really holding no weight. And this is from an excerpt called, this is from a source called An Inquiry into the Circumstances of the Death of King Charles II of England by Norman Shevers, published in 1861. Here's another one. It says, Charles II was in his person tall and swarthy, and his countenance marked with strong, harsh lineaments. So again, it's showing me that swarthy and black is interchangeable. Because in the previous source it says Charles II was known as a black man in the popular language of his day. So everyone knew him to be a black man. But we're gonna see what swarthy is in reference to anyway. We're gonna see that it's not in reference to a tan Caucasian within this context. But before we even get to that, here we have an engraving of King Charles II, and we can see that this is in fact a black man. Based off the way it looks, we can see the somewhat full lips and the broad nose. And when let's juxtapose it to this. We juxtapose it to this, we see the hooked nose and the thin lips. So we see a clear attempt to make this engraving appear more Caucasoid. Even the eyes look different. And just for those who don't know, that's a wig that he's wearing on top of his head. Now here, we have a pub that was named after him because he was given the nickname of the Black Boy. And it's ironic because the pub is named the Black Boy, but we have a Caucasoid looking person as the image to represent the Black Boy. So it just, again, there's a conflict of interest. It doesn't make sense. But here it seems to be, it seems to be more aligned. It says the Black Boy Hotel, and we see a brown-skinned man. At the very least, we see a brown-skinned man. So yeah, that's King Charles II in his original form. A bit of the color has weared off a bit. But for the most part, we can still see a lot of the brown paint on his face. So just to quickly get the definition of the term swarthy, for those who don't know, in 1828 American Dictionary of the English Language, swarthy being of a dark hue or dusky complexion, tawny. In warm climates, the complexion of men is universally swarthy or black. So again, it confirms what I said regarding swarthy and black being used interchangeably. Then going down, it says black as the swarthy African. So again, swarthy being associated with Africans, and we know Africans are black. Now it says American newspaper published during the early 1900s. A score of years ago, manager McGraw signed a Negro of swarthy complexion by the name of Grant, who had been a sensation in semi-professional baseball. So we see a Negro being associated with a swarthy complexion, and right here, the painting, you see a black man, and that would be an accurate illustration of a swarthy complexion man, a dark-skinned man, a black man. So now to conclude the video, I wanted to show an engraving of the king's father, who went by the name of Henry Lord Darnley Stuart, the king consort of Scotland from 1565 to 1567, through his marriage to the king's father, Mary Queen of Scots, who ruled Scotland from 1542 to 1567. And yeah, as you can see, the man is in fact a Negro. And this is one of the few surviving, or based off what we know anyway, the few surviving authentic pieces of artwork on the king's father. Because what the Pan-African showed us, the two paintings that he showed us of the king's father and the king's mother, those were fabricated pieces of artwork.